Federal Drive is presented by GEHA, Government Employees Health Association, proudly providing health and dental benefits to federal employees and their families. Visit GEHA.com.
The Trump administration's Deferred Resignation program this year led to more than 150,000 employees leaving their jobs in exchange for months of paid leave. But for many of those who took the DRP, the offer came with an added opportunity. Thousands also qualified for early retirement. Federal News Network's Drew Friedman spent the last several months conducting interviews, reviewing documents, and gathering data about federal retirement processing. She found that the DRP helped lead to a massive and unexpected surge in applications, now inundating the government's retirement systems.
Though many had not planned to, thousands ended up applying for retirement this spring as part of the Deferred Resignation Program, or DRP. Now, months later, that flood of applications has overwhelmed retirement processing across government. Many who took the DRP and separated in September are still waiting on their annuities right now, as agencies' HR offices try to manage unusually high application volumes. Rob Shriver, a former acting director at the Office of Personnel Management, summed up the experience as one of incredible frustration.
Agency HR officials play a critical role in processing individual employee retirement applications, making sure the employee has all of the right documentation, in addition to the huge volume of other workforce-related matters that have been initiated by this workforce. HR was already understaffed. Lots of HR people have now left, and they have an ever-increasing workload, so it's all piling up. It's all going to create backlogs.
But as both OPM and agencies work through that flood of applications, they're also anticipating a second wave of retirements later this month. Due to the DRP, OPM is already well above its typical retirement workload and seeing processing times continually slow down as a result. With retirement applications on track to surpass 140,000 this calendar year, OPM is facing the highest retirement volume in at least the last quarter century, possibly ever. But as that all comes to pass, OPM has also been working to modernize the paper-based retirement process with a new platform called the Online Retirement Application, or ORA. That effort, while long awaited for many, is also leading to some further questions.
There's some uncharted waters here.
Tiago Glieger is a federal retirement planning expert with RMG Advisors. He says the converging changes are exacerbating an already difficult situation.
OPM has not really handled A, this new system before, and B, this many federal employees retiring all at the same time. You have to remember, what's different here is now HR is swamped. There's tons of people retiring. There's less of them around to be able to do this, which is causing some of the bottleneck.
But according to OPM, having the ORA platform available this year has been crucial for managing both current and upcoming waves of retirement applications.
A surge like this would be extremely difficult for our legacy processing to work. It just wasn't built for something like this.
Kimya Lee is OPM's Deputy Associate Director for Retirement Services.
Despite record high retirement volumes this year, ORA is performing well in production. This gives us confidence as we prepare to continue to increase the retirement activities in 2025 and into 2026.
Still, many retiring through the DRP are reporting delays and frustrations as they wait for their annuities to get finalized. Federal News Network interviewed more than a dozen retiring employees, all at various points in the process and across several agencies. Most of the retiring employees that we spoke to, understandably, didn't want us to use their names. We've used some AI-generated voices to convey what they told us. Some say they're seeing errors on their applications, showing up in calculations for service history, high threes, and in some cases, missing documents.
I've been yanked around. The left hand didn't know what the right was doing.
Others say they're frustrated as they remain stuck in what they call administrative limbo, with little communication from HR offices and few answers.
It just felt like I was out on an island.
And some have yet to receive their annual leave payouts, something that usually tides over retirees financially until they can get an interim annuity.
We are literally stuck in limbo. No payments, no more checks. This is causing financial hardship for so many people.
Regardless of the situation, many still expressed appreciation for the HR specialists, who they say are doing their best given a difficult situation.
My heart is with the HR offices. They are overworked, underappreciated, and this is really the biggest test they've ever faced.
And as those retirees continue to wait, the typical end-of-year retirement flood that OPM is expecting will add to the workload, and as a result, likely lead to further delays in the processing timeline.
We're going to continue to just try to be as transparent as possible with people and, recognize that, look, this is, a very, very significant number of applications we're seeing.
Scott Cooper is director of OPM. He says the agency is adding overtime hours and temporarily staffing up in retirement services to deal with the flood. They're also trying to focus on delivering interim annuities to retirees as quickly as possible.
We're trying to get ahead of that and make sure that we can, be as responsive and make sure that we're attentive to the fact that we want to minimize the time it takes for somebody to be able to get, at a minimum, the interim payment so that they don't have any material interruption between, cash flow for themselves.
Despite OPM's efforts, some say the Trump administration's workforce disruptions across the entire year have ultimately heightened employees' uncertainty. At the National Active and Retired Federal Employees Association, or NARF, John Hatton has been tracking the workforce changes this year and hearing firsthand how that's impacting those who are trying to retire right now.
All the different disruptions from the administration, whether it's a shutdown, whether it's reductions in force, hollowing out agencies, hollowing out HR staff through a deferred resignation program, that all could have a disruption on getting these files processed and over. That adds a little uncertainty in the process. Maybe they have plans for getting this done and getting it over, but certainly until it's done and files are transferred and everything's over to OPM, we're concerned that the agency side of the process is going to be difficult.
But in the short term, there's not a whole lot that retiring employees can do outside of simply being prepared for things to take much longer than usual. That's according to Tammy Flanagan, a retirement advisor at Retire Federal.
I would tell them just to keep watching, watch their mail for any communications from OPM, watch their bank account, because sometimes the money goes in the bank and you don't get a communication, you just see it show up. Be prepared that it may take longer because of the volume and the fact that, we've got all this new system with the ORA to implement. But I don't know what else they can do. I really don't.
At the same time, though, the Office of Personnel Management has also rolled out a major effort to digitize and speed up the legacy federal retirement system. OPM fast-tracked a modernization initiative earlier this year after several years in the making. It's called the Online Retirement Application, or ORA. For decades prior, the federal retirement process has been highly fragmented, with many agencies and payroll providers operating under different systems and with different information. But OPM officials have described the new ORA platform as a unified retirement ecosystem that removes manual processing steps that had been creating a lot of delays and bottlenecks.
At the end of the day, ORA is empowering employees with clarity and reduces preventable issues later on.
Kimya Lee is OPM's Deputy Associate Director for Retirement Services. She says new features in the ORA, like automation options, have reduced application errors.
As the employee works through the process, ORA shows them exactly what's finished and what needs attention. It took a complicated technical process, but it made it straightforward and manageable for an employee. By the time the package reaches HR, it is far more accurate. It's more completed than anything we have ever seen in a paper environment.
Since OPM first launched the platform in June, it's rolled out 3 versions of the ORA. OPM's Lee said that the biggest replatforming, which occurred in August, went extremely well. She credited the success to the feedback of HR specialists who were recommending improvements to the platform and pointing out issues early on.
They work directly with us. They work directly with our engineers. They test new features before they were released. They told us immediately when there were glitches, and as expected, there were glitches in the system, and they provide meaningful feedback, suggestions, and recommendations at every step of the process. That collaboration is one of the big reasons ORA is working as well as it is today.
Since its launch over the summer, more than 91,000 retirement applications have been initiated through ORA. OPM Director Scott Cooper said that generally the rollout is going very well.
It really enhances the front end of the process. So instead of people literally printing out paper documents and then, sending those documents to our team in Pennsylvania to handle manually, the front end is very seamless now in terms of getting to a completed application on a system that obviously is modern and designed for, 2025 instead of people literally, printing out paper documents. So far, the rollout has been actually very, very positive.
But with a flood of DRP applications and more retirements expected in the next couple of weeks, the pace of processing has slowed substantially this year at OPM. The average time it takes to review an application, calculate benefits, and finalize annuity has continually increased at OPM for the majority of 2025. Processing times for digital retirement applications, however, are notably faster, according to OPM's Lee.
Digital cases are moving more than twice as fast as paper cases, averaging 40 days versus 90 days in a paper system. Again, we are expecting these numbers to decrease, but as you saw, we have a surge of applications going on right now. So as the surge decreases, we also expect our digital cases to decrease substantially.
Despite speeding things up for the most part, the rollout of ORA this year has also hit some bumps in the road. The update over the summer caused many retiring employees to have to resubmit their paperwork. Some retiring employees who have used ORA described seeing errors appear on their applications after they were auto-populated in the new system.
Verdict's not out on the whole system being improved, but I think it's a step in the right direction.
John Hatton is Staff Vice President of Policy and Programs from the National Active and Retired Federal Employees Association, or NARF. He says that overall, some positives have come out of ORA, despite work still being ahead.
I think this is certainly a step in the right direction to improving the information that is sent over to OPM and making sure it's as accurate as possible, number one. And then number two, providing some visibility into where your claim is in the process to the person who's claiming it. How that goes through and the degree to which OPM is providing insight into the process there and where delays may be remains to be seen.
OPM has been trying to update its retirement systems for decades, with some of the efforts dating back to the 1980s. But time and again, the agency's attempts at modernization have fallen short of expectations. After many failed attempts, a 2023 IT strategy became the basis for many of the retirement updates OPM is still continuing to this day. Rob Shriver, a former OPM acting director under the Biden administration, said he was glad to see the modernization efforts continuing, but he's still worried about some of the short-term impacts for those retiring right now.
I know firsthand, though, that an online retirement application is only step one, and if you have a bunch of digital applications coming in, but you still have a paper process on the back end, you need people to make those applications, turn them into actual annuity payments. And there are a lot of people that are going to suffer. They're going to get interim retirement payments that are far lower than what they should be getting. It's going to cause real hardship on these federal workers who dedicated their careers to the American people.
Still, with the launch of the ORA this year, many are hopeful it will lead to even bigger changes in the future. Tammy Flanagan is a federal retirement advisor with Retire Federal.
I really do believe it's an improvement. It's something I've been waiting for a long time. I can't understand why it took this long, but I was concerned that they implemented it this year, but maybe it's a good thing because of the volume. Maybe it will help ease that burden.
But at the same time, some were still worried about the timing of the rollout and how that's going to impact employees currently in the midst of the retirement process.
A lot of these questions start to pile up. It's a brand new system, and there's not enough people in place to help answer those questions.
Tiago Glieger is a federal retirement advisor with RMG Advisors.
Retirement is already a pretty stressful process for people, right? So then on top of that, not having a clear process or information about a new system only adds to the anxiety.
In the big picture, the ORA platform represents about 1/3 of the total work for overhauling retirement processing. OPM officials have explained that the ORA platform modernizes the user-facing part of the process, but more work is still ahead before the government's retirement systems can be considered fully digital. That's according to OPM Director Scott Cooper.
We are revamping an entirely manual process, and look, we are realistic enough to understand that that takes time. It takes iterations of software development. It takes process changes. So we are fully committed to doing that. All I think I can tell people is we are 100% committed to doing everything we can to make this as seamless as possible. These changes don't happen overnight, and certainly the volume of things we're seeing, just given DRP-related actions, is greater than we've seen in the past. And I'm certain there'll be, lessons that we'll learn and things that we can do differently as we go forward. But we are absolutely committed to the cause here.
After launching ORA this year, OPM is still looking to upgrade its digital file system, or DFS, as well as Janus, OPM's program for calculating retirement annuities for applicants. For OPM's Kimia Lee, that's all going to move toward a fully digital experience.
ORA is delivering measurable improvements today while we're continuing to evolve. In the end, this digital retirement is changing what federal employees can expect from all of us, from every agency, from our payroll providers, but from OPM as well. We're seeing real results today: faster service, fewer errors, greater transparency, and we're committed to continuously improving as this ecosystem grows.
Drew Friedman, Federal News Network.
You can find many more details in Drew's special report at federalnewsnetwork.com.
Sean O'Keefe, former Navy Secretary, NASA Administrator, and senior leader across multiple presidential administrations, reflects on the principles that shaped his long federal career. In this episode of Lessons in Leadership, he joined Shane Canfield, CEO of WEPA, to discuss motivating teams through uncertainty, leading across agencies, and staying rooted in mission during times of public scrutiny and change.
Hello, and welcome to the Lessons in Leadership podcast. I'm your host, Shane Canfield, CEO of WEPA. Today, I'm honored to be joined by Sean O'Keefe, former NASA Administrator, former Deputy Director of the Office of Management and Budget, former Secretary of the Navy, former Comptroller and CFO of the Defense Department, and Professor Emeritus at Syracuse University's Maxwell School of Public Affairs. Welcome, and thank you for joining.
Well, thank you, Shane. Delight to be with you. Appreciate it very much.
What first drew you into public service, and when was it evident to you that leadership was an important part of the roles you played?
Well, I grew up around the public service. My dad was a career naval officer. He was a submariner, and we lived all over the place. Throughout the country, and as a result, I got an up close and personal understanding through him, as well as through all the folks he associated with and the environments he was working in, just what the extraordinary value is of public service and what is it that would motivate people to want to be engaged in it and to be really involving themselves in what is something larger than themselves. And the only place that is really, formulated properly is within the public sector and the public service. That again is the beneficiary or the beneficiaries are the citizens of the nation, the community, and the region in which you live.
Did you think about leadership early on, saying I need to be a great leader, and therefore I'm going to learn how to do it, or did you just naturally evolve into it? Any thoughts on that?
I guess it evolved by the great good fortune of being witness to several really extraordinary leaders, people who really did take the initiative to engage others in the task, to pull together and motivate folks to really contribute their very best to achieve an outcome. And I saw the value of that on multiple occasions, and found that was the primary ingredient, the trait, the characteristic that needed to be exhibited is the fundamentals of leadership in moving everyone engaged towards a common objective.
You have served under several presidents. Can you talk a little bit about that? What were there challenges to overcome, or were you away from politics so you didn't get? Talk about that a little bit. How does it differ as you serve through a transition, or does leadership stay the same?
Oh no, it's it's really critically important in transition cases, to be sure. But the two presidents that I served in their administrations were President George H.W. Bush and President George W. Bush in two different eras, obviously. But as a consequence, that was the closest I came to understanding the nature of the individuals who were in that ultimate leadership capacity, and their capability to motivate. Both of them were just extraordinarily inspiring people who motivated everybody to be part of the solution. But most importantly, they also had a capacity of really designating what needed to be done, and you knew that they were perfectly prepared to do it themselves, and that made the task that much more achievable. There were several different circumstances, and understanding what the objectives of the senior leadership are all about.
You've worked for different kinds of organizations, political administrations, and then government departments, agencies, and then private sector, and now academia. How does that affect your leadership style? Or do you find that leadership, the core tenets of leadership, are applicable no matter what the organization you find yourself in and having to lead? It doesn't matter where you are, that the core leadership characteristics are the same? Are they different? Are you adapting?
Well, there's a common myth in my judgment, and I'm probably the minority view of this in the academic field of public management. That common myth is that you can't apply the same principles in the public sector that you do in the private sector.
Yeah.
I never found that to be an impediment.
Okay.
It was always a circumstance where, strategy, the focus on the talent, people engaged, the process to going through decision making, the integrity imperative that must be there in order to demonstrate the absolute conviction of what's intended here, as well as the moral standing of what it is you're attempting to achieve. All those factors are very much the same. It's going to have its nuances, and there are very distinctive, differentiators within those organizations and those sectors. But at the same time, those basic principles, those tenets, foundations of what make up organizations and organization theory, in so many ways are fundamentally the same. And how you employ those may be slightly nuanced to match the condition, but they all are imperative in the same direction.
A little bit of a different direction. You were part of the very first cohort of what is now Presidential Management Intern Program, later became the Presidential Management Fellows Program. What did that early experience teach you about leading within government?
The Presidential Management Intern Program, as it started, was designed for just that purpose: a focus on public management, a focus on implementation. And its evolution over time has been extraordinary. It mystifies me why that has been the subject now of an executive order that has dismantled it. And it's absolutely unconscionable, given the nature of the hundreds, thousands of people who've moved through that program in the course of the last nearly 50 years, that have gone on in some cases to be senior executives within the federal government, and in other cases they've moved on to other kinds of pursuits. But even with that, even for those who have left the service, they walked away with an appreciation of what public service is all about, why it matters, and why this is so critical to get it right. Because by and large, the reason why these functions are delegated to the public sector is because no one else can do it. Usually that's the case. It takes that kind of focus of a public entity in order to achieve an outcome that frankly would not be achieved in other spheres. So as a result of that, it gave me an incredibly in-depth understanding of that process at a very early stage in my career that has lasted the entirety of that professional experience.
A closing question. Who has influenced your leadership style, and what about their example stays with you? And that question can be cast broadly. So, inside government, outside government, perhaps not government at all, somebody that you've met, reported to, been mentored by, a broad net. But when you think about broadly, when you think about who has influenced you, who comes to mind?
I would have to say that the number one, hands down, greatest influence during the course of my life was my dad. He was an engineer, so everything was a calculated risk. I think I was probably 25 before I realized the answer was not to be found for everything in a slide rule, but that was his bent and his mindset. And he taught me how to think critically. And it really was one of the most extraordinary attributes. And he was an inspiring parent and mentor in so many ways. And all the different things I've done throughout the course of his life, I had the opportunity through much of it to be able to consult with him on a variety of things, and always walked away with a more informed perspective. Dad was an extraordinary public servant in his own right.
Well, Sean, thank you very much for sharing your insights and experiences. It has been a pleasure talking.
I'm delighted to be with you, Shane. Thank you so much for doing this.
And this is Shane Canfield, CEO of WEPA, reminding you to empower your team and embrace challenges. Until the next time on Lessons in Leadership.
Find the full podcast and future episodes of Lessons in Leadership on the Federal News Network app and anywhere you enjoy your podcasts.